Hi folks, I'm inspired to do the new moon in Pisces video, so I'm going to do it. I'm only saying that because there were a couple of shorter videos that I thought I would do, and typically I do my new moon videos closer to the new moon, and the new moon occurs on Wednesday, so about a week from today. But since I'm inspired to do it, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So the new moon is on March the 18th. Actually, let me do the following. It's on March the 18th, Wednesday for me, 6:24 p.m. Pacific time. The new moon is at 28 degrees and 27 minutes of Pisces. And within a 5-degree aspect, the new moon in Pisces is conjunct Neptune in Aries. A little over 5 degrees, and I mean barely over 5 degrees, it's also conjunct Saturn in Aries. So we're going to talk about all of that. And then the two astrological aspects that are within 5 degrees of each other that are encoded into this new moon are Mars in Pisces trining Jupiter in Cancer, and a retrograde Mercury, really for all intents and purposes by then a stationary Mercury, because Mercury goes direct on March the 20th, and this is happening on March the 18th, conjuncting the North Node in Pisces. So the other aspects are pretty Pisces heavy. Mars in Pisces, trining a direct stationary Jupiter in Cancer, and a retrograde Mercury, all but stationary, getting ready to conjunct the North Node on the next day. And then the day after that, going direct. So where shall I start? I have something very, very specific to share about new moons that occur when Mercury is retrograde. Period. And typically those new moons will occur in the same sign where Mercury is retrograde, because Mercury is close to the sun. So, but before we get into that, let's cover certain basics. The new moon in Pisces. By the time the new moon in Pisces occurs, Venus has already gone through Pisces. The sun is almost on its way out. 2 days after the new moon, the sun will be in Aries. Mars is almost halfway through Pisces, is at about 13 degrees of Pisces when this new moon occurs. And Mercury, of course, is getting ready to go direct, and then is going to make his way through Pisces. So a lot of ground has been laid. Specifically, listen, I've got to tell you one thing. Sometimes during a Mercury retrograde period, it is a specific pocket of time and activity when the mundane Mercury retrograde, notorious Mercury retrograde insanity really hits. And for me, I don't know how it's been for you, for me it's been the last 24 hours until this time. I mean, yesterday I had an episode out of Absurdistan, you know, just the weirdest episode of trying to get back home from running the most mundane of chores, the weirdest delays, totally exhausting, totally frustrating, lost, I would say, about an hour and a half, honestly, 2.5 hours out of my day over something ridiculous and poor judgment on my part, you know, kind of Mercury retrograde thinking, like, why didn't I just follow the impulse that made the most sense when there was a way to bypass that shortcut? And today, all afternoon, you guys, I've sat down ready to do this video about an hour ago, and I had to do the most basic of tasks, and the computer has been slow. I'm sure there's some sort of update running in the background. It's just been ridiculous. Anyway, so for whatever that's worth, you know, Mercury is getting ready. Mercury doesn't go direct for another week. So and this new moon doesn't occur till March the 18th. So it's not a question of Mercury being especially slow right now. It's slowing down, but I'm going to call Mercury stationary more like, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of next week, during next week. So, but always during Mercury retrograde, there's a certain pocket of time when things just become bizarre. And for me, it's been the last 24 hours. So not sure about you. Venus came into Pisces on January the 3rd. So Venus was in Pisces from January the 3rd to I'm just feeling so salty. January the 3rd to February the 4th. Mercury came into Pisces on February the 14th, went retrograde on February the 25th, and goes direct. I told you, I'm looking at 2025 dates. That's why I'm having this brain fart as I'm talking to you. Like, this is not making sense. Seriously. All right, let's start this again. Venus has been in Pisces. Okay. Mercury came into Pisces. Here's how the transits have worked with the personal planets. So Mercury came into Pisces. Mercury is the first planet to come to Pisces on February the 6th. Went retrograde on February the 26th, goes direct on March the 20th, and is going to be in Pisces all the way to April the 15th. Venus came into Pisces on the 10th of February till March the 6th. The Sun came into Pisces February the 18th, is going to leave Pisces on the 20th of March. Mars came into Pisces on March the 2nd and will remain in Pisces till April the 9th. The new moon in Pisces on the 18th will exercise its influence all the way to April the 17th. So till April the 17th, we're in what I call Pisces season. Pisces season, therefore, has been active since February the 6th, when Mercury came in, to April the 17th, when the new moon in Aries occurs. I've been saying April the 15th all over the place. And we have the new moon on March the 18th. The new moon occurs after all the personal planets are in. Groundwork has been laid, not only with the personal planets transiting through Pisces, but also the full moon, which happened to be a lunar eclipse on March the 3rd, and whatever happened during that time. All the activity of the personal planets so far and that full moon lunar eclipse will inform us with regard to what actions and steps we need to take and what seeds we need to plant after March the 18th, all the way to April the 17th, to bring, say it along with me, those of you who've been watching my new moon videos, the house occupied by Pisces into alignment with what we value. Typically, whatever it is that we do shows signs of harvesting 5 to 7 months down the line. But on March the 18th, we start the month of Pisces, a 4-week period, a 28-day period, where we are given the portal to plant seeds and take action, and the next right step, and the next right step, and the next right step to bring the house occupied by Pisces in alignment. Now, that doesn't mean that we should not be taking action until then, that we have not been taking action, because all that we're doing is laying the groundwork for us getting clear about what actions actually need to do. You will see, this is the interesting thing about planets and planetary transits, and you should experiment with this. I can have every intention of communicating something. And to my amusement, the communication typically goes out once Mercury enters the house where the communication is going to go out. Be in action. Do what you need to do in the Pisces part of the chart, both to stabilize and clean it up, and to lean into and build whatever it is that you're trying to build in the Pisces part of the chart as a result of the North Node eclipses that have been occurring in the sign of Pisces, in the house occupied by Pisces in your chart, since July 2024 to February of 2027. Keep doing all of that. And you're being pressured to do it anyway. And that full moon lunar eclipse on March the 3rd and the 2 weeks after that, the pressure is building. Remember what I said during that full moon, that it'll put pressure on us to take action in the house occupied by Pisces in our chart to make up for the deficit of releasing what we've released in the Virgo part of the chart, or are planning to release on the way to releasing, so that we can make up for whatever's been lost as a result of releasing something outmoded in the Virgo part of your chart. But it gives us the motivation to build and lean into building in the Pisces part of the chart, where the North Node eclipses are taking place, in order to make up for that deficit. And we can make up for deficits in all sorts of ways. We can put our efforts in a certain direction to make up for a financial deficit, or an emotional deficit, or, sort of it's like a revolving door, or a door closes and another door opens. So we've got to invest our time and our effort into that door that is opening. Yeah. We can also make up for a deficit by changing our life, so that you can make up for a deficit by, let's say that a deficit means that you are somehow negative 200 on something. It can be a financial thing, or it can just be, we're just putting a random value on whatever. It can be making up for things financially and numerically, or it can be making up for things by not needing that 200 or part of that 200. So some of it is about effort being applied to building something in the Pisces part of the chart, and some of the way to make up for a deficit could be to change your lifestyle or manage your lifestyle so that you need less, not to the point of self-sacrifice or to the point of hampering your ability to be productive, but to align yourself. And then when this new moon occurs, we're really given a time period where, with everything that has happened with Venus, and with Mercury going retrograde, and conjuncting the North Node twice, and all the personal planets having conjuncted the North Node by the time Mercury goes direct and the new moon happens, and the trines to Jupiter that all the personal planets have made, and Mercury twice, and all that Saturn and Neptune having left Pisces, and cleaning up crises building since 2012, peaking in 2016, 14, 15, especially 16, 17, and dealing with the repercussions of that, and showing up to responsibly manage and end energy leaks in the Pisces part of the chart, and building what we're trying to build in the Pisces after the new moon on March the 18th. We have a 4-week period where we are likely going to be taking steps and actions to bring that part of the chart into alignment with what we value. Okay, as we head to the new moon, I've said this before, friendly reminder, especially Monday, Tuesday, your energy will dip, the moon will be dark, things may feel hopeless, stressful, but rest is needed. You're going to be releasing that last month, the month of Aquarius. The other thing is that on its way to the moon entering Pisces, the moon will go through Aquarius, and that is going to happen over the weekend. For me, today and tomorrow, the moon is in Capricorn, so by the time we get to it, today is Thursday, so Saturday, Sunday, the moon will be in Aquarius. And so on Saturday and Sunday, don't be surprised if matters related to how you've been bringing the Aquarius part of your chart into alignment with what you value since February the 17th show up again. You start to get some sense of how to bring closure on certain things. Mars trining Jupiter. When does that trine with Jupiter happens? Let me give you the exact dates. Some of this conversation, understandably, is taking me to the weekly overview that I did for this week. Remember, the weekly overview I did this week heavily featured Mars, the planet of action, in Pisces, and the need to be in action to pursue goals and set boundaries. And this week, everything is so slow. Sorry, guys. I'm going to quit whining at some point, but the only way to make it through Mercury retrograde period sometimes is to whine. I did click something. Are you going to... Thank you. So this week, Mars conjuncted the North Node, and then today, Mars conjuncts the North Node, and then on the 15th, a retrograde Mercury conjuncts Mars. And then on the 18th, we have the new moon in Pisces. And then Mercury conjuncts the North Node on the 19th, and then Mercury goes direct on the 20th, and Mars trines Jupiter on the 21st. And then, relevant to this new moon, the Sun conjuncts Neptune on the 22nd, and the Sun conjuncts Saturn in Aries on the 25th. And Venus conjuncts Chiron in Aries on the 26th. After the Sun goes into Aries, more and more of our energy is going to go into the Aries part of the chart. It's all very, very fascinating. Encoded into this new moon is Mars in Pisces, pursuing goals, setting boundaries, taking the right kind of action. And we're going to be taking a bulk of this action between now and the 21st of March to assist whatever actions we're taking in the Pisces part of the chart allow Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, in the house occupied by Cancer, to end a 12-13-year cycle and start a 12-13-year cycle. It's harmonious. It isn't a sense of urgency as much as it is a positive dependency. So the more actions we take to stabilize the house occupied by Mars, the more actions we take to pour ourselves into building what we're trying to build in the house occupied by Pisces, the more Jupiter knows what endings and more aligned new beginnings to create in the house occupied by Cancer in your chart till the end of June, after which Jupiter will move into Leo. And with a retrograde Mercury or stationary Mercury conjuncting the North Node, Mercury conjuncted the North Node in Pisces when he entered his shadow degrees. As he ends his retrograde, he does it again. So there's a lot here about building what we're trying to build in the Pisces part of the chart. And so action being taken in the Pisces part of the chart. I mean, the astrology could and how that actually impacts endings and new beginnings in the Cancer part of the chart. How so much that has been occurring since February the 6th in the Pisces part of the chart has been about building the new and moving towards building the new. When we get ready to take action in the Pisces part of the chart as a result of the new moon, we can take action in the Pisces part of the chart now and any time as a result of the new moon. I would imagine, you don't always have new moons where Mars in the same sign as the new moon is making an important transit, and Mercury at the North Node. It's going to be, we're going to feel the urgency that is needed. The action needed to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment, to build and to make up for the deficit that the full moon lunar eclipse on March the 3rd pointed us to. It'll be a big theme as we head towards the middle of April. And remember, we just started a communication cycle in Pisces that takes us to July the 12th. We're going to have an eclipse at the end of August in Pisces, a lunar eclipse. So the week before and after June the 28th, I think, we're going to feel that. There's plenty to follow. But taking the next step and taking the next step and taking the next step, we're going to have a lot of energy encoded into this particular new moon. Now, let me talk about the two things that are most important with this new moon. One, the fact that the new moon is occurring while Mercury is stationary. And the second, the fact that the new moon in Pisces conjuncts Neptune and Saturn, for all intents and purposes, in Aries. Here's how things work when a new moon occurs while a Mercury is stationary in the same sign. When Mercury is retrograde, we are often pointed to, outside of the mundane insanity that a Mercury retrograde creates, delays and technical breakdowns and snafus and all that stuff, we are often pointed to during a Mercury retrograde what relationships, what directions, what potentials that we were committing to actually have a strong and sturdy foundation and what don't. Very often we might get a reality check about something that we thought was an option or we're building a certain amount of fantasy around, understandably, because when it looks like something is moving forward, when it looks like you're getting an interview and then another interview and everyone seems to be really happy, it's human to start to think, oh, okay, this might actually come true. This might actually be a possibility. And then when Mercury goes retrograde, you realize something about all of that. That makes you go, oh, wait a second, is that really the best possible option? Sometimes another seemingly less attractive option shows up. And it's seemingly less attractive often because it might actually be less attractive, but also because, we are so fixated on this primary thing that anything else seems like a second best. And sometimes there's no other option, and we just decide that we're gonna kind of sit back for a second, and rather than board the train that's gonna ultimately go over a bridge that has shaky foundations, or put our eggs in a basket that is not gonna hold, we're gonna actually hold on to our eggs, how weird, or not board the train and wait till the right direction shows up. I've learned to be very grateful for Mercury retrograde periods to reveal to me what needs to be revealed, what I need to know, so that I can go back to the drawing board. So that I don't move forward assuming that something is going to come through when it may not, or agreeing to take something on or move in a certain direction even though I've had intuitive red flags about certain things, only to realize that I've ended up in some kind of pickle. By the time Mercury goes ready to go direct, very often the knots that we are examining, the KNOTS, like a sailor's knot, the knots that we're examining, very often there's a set of communications as we enter Mercury retrograde, like February 25th or thereabouts, or facts that start to appear, or details that start to appear, that by the time we get to Mercury going direct at around the time of this new moon, it's like an opening parentheses and a closing parentheses. We get some sort of resolution, for lack of a better word, or some sort of clarity around what the information Mercury retrograde has revealed really means to you. What does this mean to me? And sometimes that can be that sense of a letdown. Oh, I thought my train was gathering speed and was going on this track or whatever it is, and it isn't. I thought I was taking this opportunity, but it looks like I'm taking this opportunity. And I want you to think about that scenario for a second. I thought that this was going to work out, but now I have some details that makes me think that this is not going to work out. But something else has worked out that could potentially be rescuing me. Or if that something else has not worked out, I'm holding on to what I need to hold on to and not taking a train and not putting my eggs in a faulty basket, and I'm waiting for the next right thing to show up. When Mercury goes direct or stationary, whatever that new or alternative track is that we are now considering or taking, because the original track has revealed itself to have certain potential challenges, we can find ourselves moving down that path. But the details around it, when Mercury goes direct and for the few days after that, may change or shift. So let's go with a scenario like this. Let's say that you thought all along it's like a fork in the road. And you thought all along that you were going to be moving in this direction, but then you realize with this particular option that there's certain things that are making you rethink things, go back to the drawing board, and you're looking at this particular option, which could be another opportunity, it could be no opportunity at all. By the time Mercury is going direct, very often we are now on this particular track. And we are assuming, either because we've been told certain things, or we are assuming that that particular track is going to have certain realities associated with it. Hey, I thought I was going to be taking that job, but I'm okay to be taking your job. Can we talk a little bit more? Oh, are these the details? Is this? Okay, got it. And then Mercury goes direct and they contact you and say, you know what? I said these were the details, but rather than need you for 4 weeks, I think we're going to need you for 4 months. So rather than need you for 4 months, we may need you for 6 weeks. Or rather than this it could be this. So just be prepared that with the new moon that occurs, heading into a stationary Mercury, there could be this period of what is going on? And it can actually be, very often, Mercury going direct can be kind of aggravating, even sometimes devastating, because a person feels like over the past 3.5 weeks, I have had to adjust my entire view of how I was moving forward, what I was moving forward towards, what was real for me, what was not real for me. And so I've taken this option, which was its own emotional journey and process of adjustment. And now that I've taken this option, now you're coming to me and telling me it's not going to be this and it's going to be this. Make the madness stop. Very often this happens because when Mercury goes direct, we get clarity on things that we are unable to get when Mercury is retrograde. You've got to let the dust settle a little bit. Mercury goes direct on the 20th. Give things till the end of next week, till about the 22nd, 23rd, to really feel like, what does my reality look like? And you will likely have moments. Mercury retrogrades are characteristic of, I have learned to try to not get sucked into this energy because it doesn't always have great consequences and it's a lot of energy. And those conversations are like those conversations we have with customer service or with the airlines where our bags are lost and you're getting the most absurd scenarios. I traveled once while Mercury was retrograde. I was traveling to India and I stopped by Seoul and I missed the connecting flight. And literally they were telling me, well, we have no connecting flights. We have no other options. And I was like, I can't leave the airport. Like, what are you? Now, it was at the height of people traveling to India. It was in the wintertime. But the nature of the conversation was so absurd. It was one of those classic Mercury retrograde conversations. It's like getting a package from IKEA where a bolt is missing and you call them, I don't know that you can call them, just bear with me, and you're asking for that. They're telling you, well, no, I've seen the instructions. There's no such bolt there. And you're just like, no, I'm seeing the instructions. I can see what that bolt would go, bizarre. And then Mercury goes direct and everything's like, pew. I mean, in that case, I finally found a flight that then took me to Hong Kong. No, it did not. It took me, this is what, Seoul, Bangkok, overnight in Bangkok, Hong Kong, Delhi. After looking at people like they had a horn coming out of their forehead. You've got to give everything. On the positive side, you could be going back to the drawing board on some overall direction, and you could be settling on what it is that you are going to be putting your attention into. You've just got to give things time till about the 22nd, 23rd of March for the dust to settle and to feel on solid ground with the understanding that some of the information that you're going to get, particularly after this new moon while a stationary Mercury is active next week, is just may cause you to short circuit. And I would just try and get the facts. And to understand that what is likely happening is that how people thought something would unfold while Mercury was retrograde, as Mercury goes direct, they realized, oh, actually, I don't know what we were thinking. We're not going to need this for 4 months. We're going to need this for 4 weeks. Now, being told that you have a job for 4 months as opposed to 4 weeks is a big deal. I haven't actually had something like that happen to me, but irrespective, it's an example. It may not be the best example, but what tends to happen is that when we reflect on the clarity that has now come to a particular situation that we may have agreed to, this is why I will sometimes say it's okay to agree to things while Mercury is retrograde, particularly if it is getting you out of a pickle or an outcome, and Mercury retrograde is doing you a favor and telling you to readjust your expectations about something. and saying, are you sure you want to move forward in this direction? Maybe you've gotten all out of this experience that you can get. It doesn't just have to be an interview that has to lead to a job. It could be that you wrote a short story and you had the sense that the short story was going to become part of a collection with a particular publisher, or was going to, they wanted you to expand it into a novel, and then you realize something about either the publisher or the deal where it was just like, no, this is so disappointing. I thought this was, but it's not going to be that. Do I have to go with this publishing house? And that publishing house is like, yeah, sure, and this would be the deal, and this would be the details. And you're like, strangely enough, this feels okay. This feels kind of right to me. And you agree to certain details while Mercury is retrograde, and it saves you. But then when Mercury is going direct, they come back and say, well, this is what it's going to look like. And you're like, this is not what I agreed to. Grrr. But then a few days later, by the time you get to the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, you might be like, okay, you know what? This is what is making sense. And a few months from now, you will look back to this Mercury retrograde going, thank you for showing me what I needed to see. Our mental and cognitive capacities need to touch base with our solar self multiple times in a year to get aligned. Because otherwise the mind will just go off into all sorts of different directions and think it knows the truth about things. And sometimes everybody believes in the fantasy of something, so you can't be faulted for believing in the fantasy of something. But even they are not entirely clear about what they're talking about. And they're not representing things completely. Now you might say, Abhi, we have a new moon in Pisces. What does all of this have to do with Mercury retrograde? Well, you have a new moon with a stationary Mercury in the same sign. So, building on this, what the new moon opens up for you is a 4-week period where you have to take action to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment with what you value. When a new moon occurs and a month is created with a Mercury stationary, expect the first week of this month created by this new moon to let the knot untie. And what you will find that as Mercury starts to gather speed is that you adjust into the new reality and start to understand, at least to some extent. You may not get this understanding for a few months. You may look back and say, oh my God, that particular option, thank God it did not go through. And this other option, interesting, or this not going with any option at all, actually made a lot more sense than just jumping onto what I thought I was going to jump onto. You will be given the opportunity, and you will have the option to, and you will need to be in action for the 4 weeks after the 18th to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment with what you value. There may still be, for that 4-week period, a sense of, this is what it's going to feel like. We're going to go through the new moon with a Mercury retrograde. This is what it's going to feel like with this new moon. See that new moon up there? And the blindfold will come off and you'll be able to start to move those swords around about 4 or 5 days after the new moon. And you're still in the process of making choices, but feeling a little bit like the blindfold is on. What you're going to need is a certain amount of discipline with yourself, and where appropriate with others through the process as well, where other people need to stand up for you. If someone comes to you and says, we were going to hire you for 4 months, but we're going to hire you for 4 weeks, I think it is fine to say to a recruiter or even to the employer, can we talk about what this means for me and how you're going to have to make this better, because I would not have said yes to this opportunity. I would have agreed to different terms. This is why sometimes people say don't sign on anything while Mercury is retrograde, because the details will get clearer after the fact. Now, sometimes you may be able to sign, sometimes you may not be able to sign. But sometimes expressing yourself, ideally without a lot of ire, not getting wrapped up in the jangliness of things, can help you have a conversation that expresses your confusion, your frustration, your disappointment, but even just your vulnerability about the situation. And somebody else can say, you know what, she's right, or he's right, or they're right, and let's see what we can do to make this better. There's going to be a feeling from March the 18th through April the 17th of this kind of hanged man energy, where it's going to feel a little bit like, yeah, things are moving and I'm taking action, but especially when it comes to flow, and it could be financial flow, it can be life flow, it can be money coming in. So let's say that you do take a job after while Mercury is retrograde, and the details change while Mercury is direct, and you're supposed to be getting paid for it. For some reason, the money doesn't really start to flow until when you have a new moon, like you do on April the 17th, with a direct Mercury that is moving forward and coded into it. That is the time period when the portal opens. Many of you may really feel the new moon in Pisces energy when the new moon in Aries occurs on April the 17th. At that point in time, you may feel both the new moon in Aries and the new moon in Pisces and feel like, all right, I am finally feeling like my boat is on a river that is moving in a direction I understand, and a direction that feels like it has flow from the universe, and where things are actually moving. With the new moon in Pisces, it's not that you will not be taking action. You will be taking action, and you will need to be taking action. But the consequences and the results of those actions, because it is a new moon that is encoded with, on the one hand, you have Mars and a retrograde Mercury conjuncting the North Node in Pisces at that time. So the energy of action, moving towards your goals, setting boundaries, looking over and correcting past issues, building whatever it is that you need to build in the Pisces part of the chart, are all encoded into this new moon in Pisces. But so is a stationary Mercury. So it means that action will be taken, but you're going to feel like, I'm still waiting for that flow to kick in. And the flow will kick in after the new moon on April the 17th. I'm sorry, I hate to be the bearer of that kind of news, but that has been my experience with this kind of energy. Our focus still needs to be on managing energy leaks, still more favorable at times to be in communication after Mercury is direct sometimes, but we've got to do what we've got to do when we've got to do it. And remember, with the communication cycle in Mercury, I did a video on this just a few days ago, till Mercury goes direct, we're still kind of gathering the requirements for whatever it is that we're going to be building in the Pisces part of the chart. You can take a look at that video as well, it'll build on this. Now, let's talk about the fact that this new moon is conjuncting Saturn and Neptune. I did a video not too long ago, I'll place a link to that video at the end of this, about how the Saturn-Neptune conjunction on February the 20th, and the fact that both these planets are now within the first 3 or 4 degrees of Aries, is building up to the fact and reminding us, my God, what is happening with those sirens? Every time I'm doing videos, it's like, anyway, sorry. And of course, you can hear the air conditioner, but it's like 90 degrees in Los Angeles today. It's March the 12th. For the next week, the temperatures are just crazy. So sorry about the ambient noise, is what I'm trying to say. Oh, what a jangly Mercury retrograde energy we're dealing with right now. Okay. It would not surprise me at all if themes, people, opportunities that were present between March of 2025 and November of 2025, even more keenly, lessons surrounding these opportunities from May of 2025 to September 1st of 2025. It would not surprise me if it feels like they're kind of thematically back. And remember what I've been saying with Saturn in Aries along with Neptune in Aries. Remember the lessons from that time and ensure that you are not underselling yourself in the Aries part of the chart. While all this activity has been going on in the Pisces part of the chart, in the Aries part of the chart, we just recently had Venus conjunct Neptune and Saturn. Venus conjuncted Neptune on the 7th of March and conjuncted Saturn on the 8th of March. So as we were heading to that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on the 3rd, the last week of February and the first week of March, and heading to March the 8th, we may have experienced two sets of energies playing out. One to do with the Pisces-Virgo axis, and one to do with relationships and financials and prospects going through a kind of test or things coming back up that were reminiscent of Saturn and Neptune walking into Aries temporarily for a period of time in 2025. I'll place the link to that. I titled it something like Lessons from 2025 or whatever it was. When this new moon in Pisces occurs, not only does it give us the go-ahead to start to move forward in the Pisces part of the chart, it also gives us the go-ahead. Because remember, the Sun is getting ready to conjunct Neptune and Saturn on the 22nd and the 25th of March. And then as you head into April, Mars is going to make these conjunctions after the middle of April, after Mars comes into Aries, and Mercury will make these conjunctions at the end of April. Mars, middle of April, and Mercury, third week of April. So between now and the middle of April, till that Aries new moon, my darlings, this new moon in Pisces opens up a month of recovery. But it's a bit of a tightrope walk. When you deal with this much Venus conjuncting Saturn and therefore being tested, Mercury, Mars conjuncting, the Sun and Mercury conjuncting, Mercury being retrograde, you're going to need recovery time. And as you head towards next week, with Mercury being stationary, conjuncting the North Node, the new moon in Pisces, things getting clarified after Mercury goes direct as we get towards March the 22nd, 23rd with details, and us then starting to move forward and taking action, observing, taking action, paying attention to what we're trying to do to stabilize the Pisces part of the chart, but also grow and build something in the Pisces part of the chart. What we're doing to make up for the deficit that became clear to us with that full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo on March the 3rd. We're also going to be observing when it comes to passing tests from 2025. Those themes are going to come back around for us. They already did at the end of February and into March for the first time from a relationship and a financial and opportunity perspective. When the Sun gets ready to conjunct Neptune and Saturn, we're really going to be very aware on a solar intuitive level of what those tests might mean and how we're going to make our choices this time around. What those tests taught us. Remember that Saturn, when it is with Neptune, it's really saying to us, don't undersell yourself. What are your criteria? What are your priorities? What are your criteria for the choices that you make? How do you make sure that if something is being offered to you or not offered to you, or you're contemplating choices between organizations or opportunities, how do you make sure that you honor yourself and that you are moving towards your highest potential? Sometimes the choice involves not underselling ourselves by not joining certain companies or taking on certain work that we feel like, I feel like I'm somehow demoting myself to do that, so I'm going to raise the bar higher for myself. Sometimes, however, it can feel like I don't care if this is a bigger company. I don't like what they're offering me. I actually really like how I feel when I talk to this smaller company. That's what feels right to me. It's not, underselling oneself is not always about how much money we're making, or it is about this internal feeling of feeling like I am taking the next right step and the next right step and the next right step. It's a very distinct feeling of, yes, I know this is a bigger established company and I'm being offered a certain amount of money, but I am not sure what I'll be doing, and I'm not sure. That's a very different feeling from, I'm going to be joining this bigger company and I know what I'm going to be doing and I am so excited and it feels right. Just as it's a very different feeling if I'm going to be joining this smaller company, but why do I feel like, based on everyone around me, I'm the most experienced person in the room and they're acting like it's a coup for them to have me, and I'm feeling like I'm around people who have less experience than me and I'm feeling like I'm demoting myself. It's very different from that to, oh, I know this is a smaller company, but I've met with everybody and I feel really aligned with them and I feel like the opportunities are really rich and I know I'm going to be making less, but the work is so satisfying and I can feel it go somewhere. I can feel the potential for my growth here. You're going to have to determine what's going to make you feel like you are making choices in the Aries part of the chart, the house occupied by Aries in the chart, that honor you. It's not about being delusional about what you're worth, but it is about being clear about what you bring to the table and what you're worth and what is going to work for you. And to not let a temporary phase of scarcity rush you into something where you're just like, oh, I knew I was compromising myself somehow. Or when Saturn is involved, there is always this question of, are you investing in the right thing? Are you riding the right horse? At least in terms of subject matter, area, are you in the ballpark of what you want to be building? Or are you completely working in a completely different area or arena out of a sense of scarcity consciousness? You can still be working in a certain arena to pay the bills, but be clear about what your bullseye is. Then whatever you're doing is a means to an end, so that as opportunities for investing into that bullseye come up, you can still make that the priority and find ways to make that the priority. When this new moon occurs with a stationary Mercury, until that new moon in Aries, you may have a period of time for the next month that not only are you taking actions to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment and still waiting for a certain amount of flow to begin. Similarly, in the Aries part of the chart, you may be dealing with opportunities and options and in communication with, especially after Mercury goes direct, and in communication with people or situations either the same or similar to what you were dealing with in 2025, or in the same ballpark, maybe different people, around how to set things up. After Catherine O'Hara's passing, I saw an interview with her where she said, if you're going to join someplace, join it on the right foot. Because once you join something on the right foot, if you don't join it on the right foot or footing, chances are it'll never work out. Feel good about what you're entering into. Honor yourself. Make sure that you understand why you're doing it and why it is honoring you. Why it is exciting to you. Why it is the next right step. And things may occur after the new moon in April as the sun conjuncts, and then especially as you head into, it's really interesting to me that new moon occurs in April after Mars makes those conjunctions. I mean, Mercury still is going to be making those conjunctions Hold on one second. I'm just having an aha moment. The new moon is going to be at about 27 degrees of Aries on the 17th, just as Mercury is making those conjunctions with Neptune and Saturn. You're going to be, after this new moon, and after Mercury, you're done dealing with Mercury being stationary and going direct on the 20th, and starting to at least show some signs of forward movement by the 23rd. You're going to be taking action and taking the next right step and being quite busy taking action, protecting your boundaries towards your goals in the Pisces part of the chart for the 4 weeks and created the month of Pisces, created by this new moon on the 18th. You are also going to be looking at options, hopefully, or situations in the Aries part of the chart where you are going to be asked to tap into lessons on making sure that you're not underselling yourself, that are going to be reminiscent of what you went through between March and May of 2025 and September to November of 2025. And that's really when I say March and May. Neptune came into Aries in March, Saturn in May. Saturn left Aries to go back into Pisces on September 1st of last year, and then Neptune in November. So when Neptune was alone in Aries, that is what creates the impulse and the experience of underselling. When Saturn came in between May the 1st and September, or between May 20th, I think, and September the 1st is when we really were able to make those distinctions and process the lessons around what are the right choices for me? What am I in danger of heading towards? What is happening here? What should I be focused on? And sometimes, depending on who we are and what we're doing, sometimes we agree to take on opportunities that feel, if we're feeling a little bit like I haven't been swimming in this pool for a while, or I want to ease into something, we can end up saying yes to opportunities that are not quite, don't measure up to our experience and our potential and our abilities. But then those experiences teach us pretty quickly that we're worth more. And for the 4 weeks or so after the Pisces new moon, you may also kind of go through experience. You may start to see opportunities or glimmers or choices or possibilities or things show up, but they require you to be discerning in the Aries part of the chart about making sure that you are honoring the direction that you actually want to move in, even if it means that you're taking something in a different direction. At least you know why you're taking it, to support, what I say, be clear about your bullseye and make sure that it reflects you authentically. If you want to be a neuroscientist, you don't have to say yes to dermatology. Or if you're going to say yes to dermatology, know that it's just to get you to neuroscience. I mean, it's a terrible example, but it's like, at least be clear with yourself as to what it is that you feel like you want to move towards. Don't talk yourself out of what aligns with your sense of purpose or what sits in your heart. That's the first part of this. And examine the opportunities to make sure that when you're saying yes to something, that it is clear to you why you're saying yes to it, and that it honors you. And when you get to that new moon on the 17th, of April, and Mercury is the last of the personal planets to be in conversation with Saturn and Neptune, you might find that not only are you starting to see greater flow as a result of what you're building in the Pisces part of the chart, you might actually feel like, all right, even in the Aries part of the chart, I'm getting into the boat and I've made the right choices. Hopefully you will make the right choice. And I'm moving towards something that I'm actually excited about. It's all about the right people. It's all about the right opportunities. It's all about the right colleagues. You can say yes to something where you feel like you are the most experienced person in the room, as long as it really feels like it's something you want to do. But if it's something that doesn't feel like you want to do and you're kind of like in a group or involved or said yes to something and it's like, no, I've undersold myself, that's what we want to avoid. And you're going to go through that process. You might find that you're in the middle of conversations, and with this new moon conjuncting Neptune and Saturn, you may find, now, if in the Aries part of the chart you're trying to build something Neptunian, something spiritual, monastic, creative, artistic, then the new moon may give you an opportunity to make progress in that direction where you can see greater flow once the new moon in Aries occurs on the 17th. What is interesting is that once the personal planets are done conjuncting Neptune and Saturn in Aries, and they're done squaring Jupiter, they will meet up with Chiron in Aries as they get ready to move into Taurus. And so there's an opportunity through this process to continue to heal something that leads you towards self-empowerment in the Aries part of the chart. And that new moon at 27 degrees of Aries, that new moon is likely going to occur after the sun and the moon conjunct with Chiron, but as the personal planets go through Aries, they conjunct Neptune and Saturn, square Jupiter. So whatever's being built in the Aries part of the chart has greater urgency, and Jupiter is dependent on it, again, with this ending of a 12, 13-year cycle in the Cancer part of the chart. It just has greater edge in whatever needs to be done in the Aries part of the chart to free Jupiter to continue with that ending and new beginning. But then after all that, the personal planets conjunct Chiron, who's transiting Aries. It actually takes me back to the eclipses we had in the Aries part of the chart between March 2023 and the end of the first week of June of 25, particularly the Aries new moon solar eclipse in April of 2024, which was conjunct Chiron to the minute. Some of those themes may come back for incorporating. With Chiron, if you're making the right decisions, then Chiron is trying to align you, it's trying to get you to act from a more healed and self-empowered place. So that whatever it is that separated you from your seat of power in the Aries part of the chart in your childhood or your teenage years, you can operate from a more integrated place, a more self-empowered place. So I'm willing to put money on the fact that whatever's been going on in the Aries part of the chart and the Pisces part of the chart so far until March the 18th is kind of a dress rehearsal for what is going to follow. First, between the month of Pisces, between March 18th and April 17th, and then with the month of Aries from April 17th to the middle of May. Between March 18th with this new moon, you may be, especially once you get past Mercury going direct. And the next week is not an uneventful week. Just because Mercury is stationary doesn't make things uneventful at all. It's kind of getting to a place of like, all right, I'm finally out of, I can finally put a closing parentheses on the parentheses that opened when Mercury went retrograde on February the 20th. That's not uneventful. There's information being processed, reality checks coming in, agreements being revised, assumptions being revised, hopefully finding yourself on firmer ground, having escaped a possibility that you realized does not have a strong foundation. And then after next week, as Mercury starts to gather momentum, we are taking action, taking the next right steps to bring the Pisces part of the chart into alignment and really feeling the consequence of that. Feeling the financial flow, feeling the flow in general by the time we get to April the 17th onwards. In addition, between March the 18th and April the 17th, we may also see further developments that have been making their presence felt through the end of February and as we entered into the first week of March, that are reminiscent in the Aries part of the chart of themes, organizations, people, opportunities, that brought up this thing of, why am I here? Am I underselling myself? What is the right opportunity for me? What is the right direction for me? And what you may feel is an under the surface, because Venus is still in Aries right now, and Venus is going to be in Aries all the way to March the 30th. Till March the 30th in the Aries part of the chart, opportunities are coming up of various kinds. You may not even have a sense of those opportunities, honestly, until you get past this new moon and you get to the end of March. Then you might realize, oh, these conversations were happening behind the scenes, or someone was doing this, or someone was inquiring about this, or someone talked to my old boss about this, and opportunities are coming up. After the March the 18th new moon, especially as you head past the 23rd of March in the Aries part of the chart, you may be dealing with choices, may need to have some conversations, may need to figure out, what am I going to say yes to, what am I going to say no to, how do I make clear what's going to work for me and what's not going to work for me. First, I have to get clear about what my bullseye is and what my criteria is. So what is it that I'm looking for? What is it that about last year with those opportunities that came up late spring into summer that made me uncomfortable or brought me joy? Made me feel like I was underselling myself, or made me feel like, no, this is the right place for me to be for some reason. This is where the universe wants me for some reason. And it could be that as you're working through that process for the second half of March and the first half of April, once you get to that new moon in Aries on the 17th and beyond that, is when you start to see flow in the Aries part of the chart as well. But until that time, it's possible that you are tested. And for the first week after that new moon on April 17th, you may feel like you finally are going to be communicating your decisions to people, or signing on the dotted line, or agreeing to certain things, and so on and so forth. I'm going to leave it at this. I told you I was inspired to do this, and while for the first half of this reading I was kicking and screaming with Mercury retrogradeness, I'm really glad that I got it all out. Sorry, it's a longer video than so far I have been, but again, I feel very, very comfortable that I'm getting this bit information to you. Now, I am currently offering a 45-minute discounted reading. It's like 25% off the regular rate for 45 minutes about the eclipses and Mercury retrogrades. So the energy of the time in February and March. If you feel like you've been given a bit of a wallop through these eclipses or through Mercury retrograde and you want to touch base, that option is available to you. You can contact me using the email address below. If you want one of my regular, more holistic readings, just let me know and I can send you that information as well. The 3 ways to interact with me: getting a personal reading, email address in the description box below, becoming a member on this channel where there is rising sign specific content. I already have rising sign specific content about the Pisces Virgo eclipses, some of what we're talking about. I have content about Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus moving from Taurus to Gemini, and the trines that they're going to make, 5 trines between the second quarter of this year and the middle of 2028. I have completed 2/3 of the rising sign videos about the Aquarius Leo eclipses. I have 4 more videos remaining to put there, and then I'm going to move on to videos for all the rising signs about Saturn and Neptune and Aries, what we've been talking about in the lessons, and then I'm going to move on to talking about Jupiter moving from Cancer to Leo for all the rising signs. So there are 5 videos that I'm doing before I go back to kind of looking at rising sign charts in general. So that's what's going on there, $6.99 a month. Information on how to become a member is in the description box below. And you can, of course, watch my videos for free, which is the 3rd way to interact with me. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Next to the subscribe, there's a bell icon. Click on that wiggly bell on top, the one with the wiggles. Click on that. You'll be notified when I do new videos. You can contribute to the channel for free by liking this video, commenting on it. You can also hype this video. There's a hype button underneath this video if you think others will find it useful. I think the hypes have been helping get the channel more visibility. You can contribute to this channel monetarily by using the thanks button underneath this video or by donating to the channel. Information on donations in the description box below. I feel like I'm missing something administrative, I always say, but I'm going to leave it at that. And I'll be back in touch soon. Thank you. Take care.